And that is the explanation of Meiser Merkava. We move on. No, for the recording, I wanted to. Okay. Yeah, I can't hear you. You're on mute. You look very nice, though. How you doing?
Who's there?
Aaron is there.
Yeah.
Where does Aaron live locally?
Oceanside.
Okay.
Okay.
Oceanside on Shabbos?
You gotta ask him. I have no clue.
Yud Beis Amid Aleph or Yud Aleph?
Today's daf is Yud Beis. We're gonna start on Yud Aleph Amid Beis by the two dots. Find the part of this where Yud Aleph 11b4 is my guess.
5 it says. 11b5.
These art scroll Gemaras are very hard to.
11b5 page. Yeah, there's no page. 11b5.
Oh, here we are. Okay. Okay.
Amen.
Okay. Two dots, about 6 or 7 lines from the bottom. So we said in the Mishnah, just a very quick review or intro for those who weren't here. So the Mishnah, this parak, we're going to be discussing for the next bit or so. Really ideas that are way above pay grades of anyone we even know. These are topics and concepts that are. We're going to see a couple of famous stories in the Gemara, the famous story of Acher and going into the Pardes and understanding what happened there. We're not going to understand what happened, but point is that we're introducing the Mishnah is literally called the Ein Darshan, meaning these topics are really not meant for regular people to be studying, but it's here. We have the Daf Yomi, we have a responsibility to cover a daf a day, and the topics of these couple of dafim are esoteric ideas. Either way, the Mishnah had told us that there are certain things that one is not supposed to talk about publicly, really not supposed to teach publicly. So one of the things that was mentioned was arayas, and although there are some simple understandings of what arayas means, the Maharsha says that arayas does not mean, the halachas of arayas. It means understanding the deep esoteric ideas behind which arayas relationship, like how are those arayas relationships uniquely usher, meaning to say it's possible on some type of level for a person to understand the arayos, the isurim of arayos, and find ways that they might be mutter, meaning to say Yaakov Avinu married sisters. I mean, you have, obviously, on some deep spiritual level, there was a way for some of these relationships to not be an issue, which was able to be tapped into by certain gedolim. Before the Torah was given, obviously. Not nowadays for us, it's not our responsibility to try to figure that out. So if a person has the secrets, one is not supposed to really be teaching that unless they're teaching it over in such a way where the people that they're teaching it over to will not make a mistake in its understanding. So therefore, it can't be taught to 3 people. It can only be taught to 2 people or less. Then Maisa Bereshis, which we're going to define as just simply the 6 days of creation, right? Meaning, obviously, we're not talking about no one at this table, or for that matter, any table, understands what happened when Hashem created the world. At best, it's we're like blind people, touching an elephant. We have no real clue what's going on. When we talk about Maisa Bereshis, it seems on the basic level is the idea of how Hashem brought into reality the world that we know. I mean, what we see, not the fact, the process of Maisa Bereshis isn't even what we're discussing. That's entirely out of our understanding. I don't think anyone understands that. And then there's something deeper. And again, I don't know what this means either. This is Meiser Merkava. I've heard it said that Maisa Bereshis is the Bekoach and Meiser Merkava is the Bepoil, meaning to say, Bekoach is everything that was potential that Hashem created in the world. It's what we see, so to speak, and the Meiser Merkava is the actual process of how he went through creating the world. Again, we might as well be talking about salt and pepper. It's not something that we can talk about intelligently, but we got to learn the Gemara. It says though in the Mishnah these deep Kabbalistic ideas. I'll tell you one thing I did get out from learning these Gemaras, and what we're going to get out from learning these Gemaras is a person has to have 2 things. One, a person has to have an insane level of respect for the depth of Torah. It's very easy, especially when you're learning at Daf Yomi, to go through it and sort of treat it like a buddy. It's like, hey, every day I learn the Daf, he's my friend. You have to realize sometimes we forget. Like, these are literally like the way I heard it when I was younger was, our learning Torah is kiviyachol, if one could walk around in the mind of Hashem. I mean, that's the closest idea. I mean, imagine someone said to you, here, let me give you a tour And that's what this is. Now, sometimes you're going to walk into a room and it's going to be a very obvious room. It's going to make a lot of sense. That's Baba Kama, that's Baba Basra, that's what happens if you hit someone, that's what happens if you steal from them, this is what happens if you sleep with this woman. And then there are some rooms you're going to walk into, you'll open the door, you're like, oh, that room's not for me. You're not going to understand what's going on in there. But you have to have a respect to the fact that what we're dealing with here is real. It's not a game. We're not playing, Now, sometimes we're going to come across these Gemaras. It's our job to learn it. But the other idea I think that's really, really important is that, this is not Musar. This is just an idea that I think is important. Whatever your background is, Masorah is so important when it comes to understanding these ideas. The smartest people in the world make these mistakes. Acher was not a foolish man. He was not stupid, right? He was Reb Meir's Rebbe, right? So obviously we're dealing with someone who is on an insanely high level in terms of intelligence, let's say. And yet still a person can be incredibly smart. And that is not necessarily the authority in terms of deciding whether one should follow what someone says or not. There are plenty of people who come to these topics because they're quote unquote sexy. These are sexy things to talk about. People like to talk about the metaphysical, controversial, whatever it is. And if a person does not have a Masorah, if he doesn't have someone who's learned from someone, who's learned from someone, who's learned from someone, who can really try to trace it back, you should generally assume that if someone's teaching you these topics, you should run away from anyone who does not have a Masorah in these ideas. Anyone who's trying to teach you about Sefer Yetzirah and talking about Inyane Kabbalah without being able to show their bona fides, right? If they can't show you, yeah, this is my Rebbe, and I can verify that his Rebbe is a real deal. Like if I'm telling you over an idea that I heard word for word from Rav Aaron Lapiansky, who heard it from Rav Moshe Shapiro, who heard it from, and I could tap that back, then it's one thing. Maybe you can hear the words I'm saying, and even then, can you trust that I'm giving it over exactly how it was given over to me? There's a question around these ideas. These are not easy ideas to grasp. So unless someone is really being shown the path in this, a person has to have a real Masorah in these ideas. A person just going to get up and talk about this stuff. It's literally the easiest sign of someone you should. It's like, how do you know who you should take financial advice from? If you see someone who says, let me tell you how I can make you $1 million overnight. If someone comes to you with easy, quick stuff, that's almost the first sign that they have no clue what they're talking about. It's the same thing over here. If someone's teaching you these ideas or talking about these ideas or referencing these ideas, and like these are normal things to talk about, that's like the first sign that that's someone who, at best, has good intentions, but is clueless as to what's really going on. At worst, might even have bad intentions. That being said, let's do our best to try to understand the Gemara. So it said in the Mishnah, "Ein darshan b'arayis b'shlosha." It then said, "V'lo b'maaseh b'reishis b'shnayim, v'lo b'merkava b'yachid," which we understood after the Gemara made its adjustments to be that maaseh b'reishis should not be taught not b'shnayim, but lishnaim. We understood it to mean that you shouldn't teach it to two people; it should only be taught to one person. And maaseh merkava, which is even harder to understand, that shouldn't be taught even to one person. That's really something that only should be learned on your own. Which again sort of begs the question, exactly how do you learn something on your own if you don't learn it from someone? Okay, that's its own question. But regardless, even there it says in the Mishnah, and even that person it says, and here it's the Lashon of there is, which I think excludes almost anybody, right? Meaning not just a person who's wise, but he's maven midaito. He has the ability to discern the subtleties of things. And most people just don't have that. We're too, very binary. We see things in black and white, and life is not that. Okay. Literally chariot. It's the story of Yechezkel and where he saw a vision.
The tank, Merkava, I guess.
Yeah. He's sitting on a throne.
Sitting on the throne with wheels made of animals. Again, I don't know what it is. Okay. Says the Gemara. V'loi b'maaseh b'reishis b'shnayim. Minoni mili. Ask the Gemara. How do you know? How do you know that this halacha is true? The Tanur Rabbanan pasuk says, Ki sha'al is a singular lashon. Ki sha'al no liyomim rishonim. Yomim rishonim are the first days. So you see over here that only one person. Ki sha'al no. When someone asks you, that person asking seems to be alone. When that one person is asking you about Yomim Rishonim, which is referring to the days of creation, that's okay. Yachid shayil ve'ein shnayim shaylin. So you see, you can teach it to one person, not to two people. Yachol yishal adam kodim shnivra olam. If it says Yomim Rishonim, I might think maybe it means even the days before creation, Yom Rishonim. Talmud Lomer lemin hayom shebro lokim odom al haaretz, only from the days when man was created, meaning not the days before, not what was going on before the first day of creation, meaning what was Hashem sitting around and doing before He created. When we're not discussing that, that's not what we're talking about over here. What we're talking about over here is the conversation of what Maaseh Bereishis happened during the 6 days. Ask the Gemara from that pasuk, it's mashma only from the day that Adam was created, which was on the 6th day. So I might have a havamina yochel yishal adam yisheshes yimei brash. I can't even ask about the first 5 days. Talmud loimer liyomim rishonim asher hayu lefanecha. So therefore, we understand it to mean shahayu lefanecha, that it means even those days as well. Now, again, I don't want to get too deep into it, mostly because of a lack of understanding. The Ramban is very clear when we're talking about Ma'aseh Bereishis that those, you want to learn, Parshas Bereishis, open up a Nayach, you start talking about 100%. But once you're talking about, the lights were created on this day and the fish were created on that day, and we think we're like, it's the one thing I take out of that is I'm never impressed with the intelligence or the honesty of people who are critical of the story, because they create a straw man. It's always like, look at these dumb religious people who think the world was created in 6 days, as if we're walking around thinking that it's still a cartoon. Like, hey, God, he made the world. Like, we're obviously discussing things that are well above not only our understanding, but our understanding of what the world is. So this is important. The Ramban is very clear. At best, we're just seeing a shadow of a shadow of a shadow of a shadow. You cannot possibly really understand what was going on. At a certain level, there's an emunah.
What about the dinosaurs? What is that?
No, that's a fair. That's a fair question. What's the question? Meaning, do they exist?
So that would be, between after the world, like in terms of
They're definitely created after the world was created.
They're part of the world. There are different answers. I'll give you a couple of ideas that I've heard. Very quickly.
You say that each was like 1,000.
That's one answer, although that's not so clear. And each day wasn't an actual day.
1,000 days, right? Yeah.
And whatever that means, and even then, and there's other answers that say there are midrashim that talk about there are many worlds created before our world. It's possible to know. Again, even saying this is a perfect example of what I mean when someone says, when someone tells you an idea and they represent it as if they understand it. Do you think I understand what it means that the world was created before the world? I don't know what that means. Meaning it's not an answer that's going to help anyone who's legitimately asking.
So it's not even a question that it's written somewhere that, let's say, each day was 1,000 years.
What does that mean? What does that possibly mean?
Sure.
I don't know.
You just can't really. There's a makar for it, but it doesn't necessarily.
The Gemara says that the Gemara says that that Beis Hillel had Talmidim. I forget the amount of the number of Mishnah in Sukkah. Many of them learned it. It says the greatest of them was Yomi ben Uzziel, and the lowest of them was Yochanan ben Zakkai. Right. Yochanan ben Zakkai, it says, knew this and this and this and this. He knew the conversations of Malach and the conversation. It's a Mishnah in Sukkah. He knew the conversations of date trees. He understood the Malachim, what they talked about, and it said he knew big things and he knew small things. What was the big thing he knew? Ma'aseh Merkava. What was the small thing that he knew? Havayas Davai V'Rabba. Then it says, okay, that was the smallest of Hillel's Talmidim, and what was the greatest of Hillel's Talmidim? That was Yomi ben Uzziel. What did they say about Yomi ben Uzziel? That when he would learn Torah, fire would shoot out from. What does that even mean? I have absolutely no blessed clue, and anyone who tells you they have a clue is clueless. Like it's okay. Continues the Gemara. So Yochel, I might think.
Gemara was written by a person, wasn't it? A human being.
The Gemara was recorded. That's a better word for it. Yes.
Recorded by human beings.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And again, that's even its own question. When we talk about human beings, right? So obviously, it's hard for us to wrap our head around the idea that a human being could possess these spiritual powers or connections, because we live so basically that we live in the here and now in the world. Like if I told you when I come home after I'm going to create from nothing to something, some cereal, you would call a doctor. They're like, it's hard for us to wrap our head around the ideas that.
This was the woman also, right?
What's that?
Have you never heard that?
No,
well, they don't really know where to.
I've never heard that.
Oh, you never heard that?
Are the daughters of Tosfos or not?
No. Daughters of Rashi were met.
Daughters of Rashi.
There's daughters of Rashi, and then there's also the granddaughters of Rashi. Yeah.
All right, that's in it.
But either way, we're going to read.
Why is it so easy for us to accept that Professor Fleming, walks home and he sees all this rot on top of his lab equipment? Turns out to be penicillin. It changes the whole world history. That's normal. That people say, oh, of course, Fleming, he made penicillin. He's a normal guy. We read this, and suddenly people go,
honestly,
fun,
honestly, the interesting thing is, I guess the part that I think people have a hard time with is if I can point to something, even if I don't understand it, which I think is what you're saying. Meaning, if I look at I don't understand how a mold makes me better. I don't understand the mystery of that. I mean,
there's no mystery. It happens. You can do it at home.
No. What I mean is
replicable.
No, I know that.
By anybody.
No, I know. All I mean by that is that people believe that, they trust it, and then they see that it works. Meaning, but that's the part that if I see something works, then I don't have to understand it. I don't know how my car works, but when I turn the ignition on in the morning,
Trust anyone.
I
You see it
I see that it
empirically,
works. Now that can be said as well about Avodas Hashem, but in a much more esoteric way. You ask anyone who's tapped themselves into Yiras Shamayim and Avodas Hashem and put themselves in it, if you try to convince someone logically why this is a good idea, like the best you can say is just try it and you'll see that it's good.
Exactly.
No different, by the way, than taking medicine, meaning take some medicine. If it works, you'll say, okay, medicine's real. And if it doesn't work, what are you going to say? You're going to say, why do we think homeopathic stuff is because like it sounds like it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. But I promise you, if you have back pain and all of a sudden someone rubbed some, I don't know, canary oil on it and it started feeling good, you might start having a little bit more appreciation for that craziness.
Right.
Really, Hashem is running all the craziness, right? So in the end of the day, whether it's the penicillin or it's the oil or it's opening up a blood Gemara or it's whatever, yeah, okay. Says the Gemara, Yachol, I might think, based on the pasuk, that it's going dafka by Adam, that it's only should be applying from the 6th day and on. Talmud leim liyom mishen masher hayu lifanecha, which includes even the first days. Yachol yashal adam mala 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 mata mala fnim mala achar. Many explanations for what this means. We're going to explain it just simply as I might think that this even allows me to learn about those things that are beyond comprehension. Meaning that, of course, I'll never understand it, but at least I should try to understand it. No, Talmud leimer ulam miktzei hashamayim ve'aktzei hashamayim, that there's a limit to what one is supposed to be asking about. That although we always say a good question is never a bad question, a question is always a good thing. But again, I think intent is really important. If a person is trying to understand things, there's no question that really, if he's searching with good intentions, is ever going to lead in a bad place. It's really a lot of times when a person doesn't have good intentions with their questions, they're trying to find a way out. They're trying to find a way to slug it up. You know, famous story with Reb David Orlovsky, very funny rabbi. He used to field a lot of questions from Balei Tshuva or from guys who are trying to bust his chops, and they would come with all of their pseudo philosophical questions about the rock and God and how could God create a rock, all this little childish things we think of, and they come with all of their questions, and finally he would just turn to the guy and he would say, "What's her name? Just tell me her name, so I could figure out what the girl that you're trying to go date is, so we can figure out why you all of a sudden, yesterday you could care less about philosophy, today you walked in and every question you have under the sun." You're looking for a way out. If you're looking for a way out, there's the door. Go walk out. Like if you're looking for me to give you justification, I'm not going to give it to you. Same idea. A lot of times if a person is asking questions and the questions are good questions, a person is never going to go afoul if the questions are being asked from a good place. But if he's asking the question from a place where he's looking to figure out how do I get to find an inconsistency so that I can feel good about the thing that I'm doing, that you don't have to be that smart to figure out how to do that. Says the Gemara, so you see only from those things within those limits, what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right, what's before, what's after, what happened before Hashem created the world, what's going to be after Hashem stops creating the world. Okay, says the Gemara Vaiter. Hashta the nafkale once you're telling me that I'm not allowed to learn things out if they're from outside of the limits, that original pasuk that we used to teach us what you can talk about during Chasing Abrasius, Lumali, I don't really need it, because what's effectively the idea behind the first pasuk is don't ask questions about those things that are inherently beyond their comprehension. So if there is something that's inherently beyond your comprehension, it's an umbrella pasuk that should cover pretty much anything, whether it's before Abrasius, after Abrasius. Where it says, no, you're right, that second pasuk is look at the Rebbe Lozer. When he was first created, and again, some Mefarshim explain this to be literal, some explain this to be just an analogy. But the point is that it's saying that Adam Rishon, when he was first created, was so tall that his foot was on the ground and his head was in the sky, in the Shemayim. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, Lemin hayom asher bara lukim Adam al haaretz. V'kivan shesarach, and since he did the aveira of the chet Adam Rishon, he niach HaKadosh Baruch Hu yadav alav umiyato. Hashem put his hands on him and pushed him down, meaning made him 5'8.5", whatever the average.
Oak supposed to be higher than the marble, right?
Oh yeah, he used to hang off the back of the again another classic example. I have no clue what the hell that means. Excuse my language, but he apparently Og was hanging off the back of the boat, and that's wonderful. Well, it feels like that, and this is what I mean. What I mean is we have to have a tremendous amount of respect for these ideas, and at the same time not flippantly say them over like the way we would talk about Jack and the Beanstalk.
Right.
And at the same time, have a healthy respect for it. No. What I'm not talking about this Gemara even.
It's definitely true.
It's definitely true. What I mean is, we have to simultaneously have an appreciation for our lack of understanding, but also a tremendous amount of respect for that lack of understanding comes because something that is absolutely 100% true, and yet we can't understand it. Typically in life, when we experience something like that, our instinct is to dismiss. Oh, did you hear he lifted a 2,000-pound car? Yeah, didn't happen. It goes against everything. So there's something
I
here.
just read a book by Malcolm Gladwell, since new his book called Talking to Strangers, and in there is a concept called default to truth. In life, we default to truth, right? He goes through Sandusky, he goes through all these different things where things in your face, but you default to truth, which is what you believe.
Yeah.
That's our first reaction.
Of course. And so when you see something that goes against that, your instinct is to, okay. So over here also, again, I don't understand what it means that Hashem created a man and that man was as tall as the heavens. And I don't understand what it means when he put his hand on him. But I know that on some deep esoteric level, it means something very deep that we don't have an understanding of. And let it at least be for us, we should come at it with a tremendous amount of fear and respect and admiration for deep ideas. Okay. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, you put his hand on it to put it down. Achar v'kedem tzarasani, meaning achar v'kedem, it goes back and forth tzarasani. So you see that there's two times that Hashem created Adam, meaning the first time he was tall, the second time he was short. V'atoshes al kapecha, and then he used his hands to sort of push him down. Amar Rav Yehuda Merav, Adam harishin misayfa olam ve'ad sayfa haya. He says that he was from one edge of the earth to the other. I've always found this language a little bit funny. Misofa olam ve'ad sofa, from the end of the world to its end. I would have thought it should say something like from the beginning of the world to its end. I'm sure there's something there. I don't know. A good idea. But either way, Shedemar, how do we know that? Lemin hayom asher ba'elukim adam ala aretz ulemikte hashemayim dakte hashemayim. That same pasuk over there, that from the time Hashem created Adam ala aretz, it was from one end to the other. So you see that Adam Arishan was very, very long. So before we said he was very tall. Now we're saying he's very long. Kivin shesarach. Once he did the Aveira, he pushed him down. Shnemer, like it says, the same pasuk, that he put his hand on him. Asked the Gemara, which one was it? Was he super tall or was he super long? Gemara says, what do you mean? They're saying the same thing, meaning to say the Rishon speak out. If you would Adam Rishon were to lie down, the same height that would take him from the floor to the Shemayim would take him from one side of the earth to the other side of the earth. Now again, it's discussed here in some Rishonim about, or not Rishonim, some Mefarshim talk about earth being flat, earth being round. There's one of the Mari Makomas for the conversation. What does it mean that he was tall, that he was wrapped around the world? Exactly how would that work? It would only make sense if the world was flat. It wouldn't make sense if it was round, but okay, fine. I mean, when you lie on the ground, you're technically on a curve. You just don't feel it because it's over a very short distance and the curve is much bigger. Either way, it says the Gemara Weiler, another idea that I don't understand. 10 things, with 10 things Hashem created the world. Ve'eluhein, Shemayim, Ve'aretz, Sayu, Vayu, Ar, Ve'chayshech, Ruach, Mayim, Midas Yain, Umidas Laila. Midas Yain, Midas Laila mean, Rashi says, the 24-hour cycle of a day. These 10 ideas were created, when the world was created, it seems as if to say,
What's tohu and bohu?
It means vanity, it means waste. We don't know.
emptiness,
what?
void, tohu
Void.
vavo.
But it's something physical. We don't know.
Yeah,
It's all in Yom Rishon, right?
all in Yom Rishon, yeah. Well, we'll see, yeah.
How we explain that again?
What's that?
The sun and the moon didn't go.
Yeah, we're going to come to that. That's our Gemara today. So Asar Dvarim Nivru B'Yom Rishon. 10 things were created on the first day. And what are they? They were the Shemayim Va'aretz, Sayhu Uvayu, Ar and Chayshech, light and dark, Ruach, spirit or wind, Umayim, water, Midas Yom, the let's say the half day, that's day, and Umidas Laila, what we call the half day, that's night. So that was created before anything else was created on the first day. Shemayim Va'aretz, and we're going to go through the Psukim. Shemayim Va'aretz Tichsiv B'Reishis Bara Elokim Esa Shemayim V'Yais Aretz. Right, in the beginning, Hashem created the land and the heavens. Sayu Uvayu Dichsiv Ha'aretz Haisa Sayu Uvayu. That the land was Sayu and Vayu. What is Sayu and Vayu? The void, it's blank, it's emptiness, it's darkness. It's hard to really explain what that
It
means.
means there were no concepts that Hashem didn't create, basically.
Everything that we
Hashem
know,
created, right?
meaning the many of the deeper
It was a
Mefarshim,
Haisa, it wasn't Haisa. He
Right.
created it.
he created it, right? And in fact, on a spiritual level, what they explain is that even when it says the word Haisa, that may very well have been the words of Hashem bringing it into creation. Again,
God understood.
we're dealing with a difficult idea here. Or v'choshech, light and darkness, and here Yaakov Emden and many others explain choshech is its own creation, meaning choshech is not just heder, or it's not just the absence of light, which is how we would experience it, but that choshech is actually a physical manifestation the closest thing that we could wrap our head around. Imagine you'd be in a thick fog. A thick fog.
The dog.
That's what happened. But I'm saying we describe it as darkness, and truly, darkness is what the English word we would use to describe how we would feel in a place where there's no light. But really, darkness is its own creation, and on some level, it's an actual physical manifestation of something called darkness, meaning at least on a very, very basic level.
We don't know what the absence of anything is.
Exactly.
Right.
It's
We don't
impossible,
understand what that is. Right.
It's
There's
like,
right.
it's the opportunity cost of life. Like,
Right.
what could you
Right.
have done if this thing exist? Well, I don't know.
We can't. We have no comprehension of what
Impossible.
what the absence of anything was before anything was created. It wasn't just darkness. That's what you're saying.
Let's flip it
Right.
the other way. What would
Right.
happen if what would be in the absence of choshech? I don't know what that means. Meaning,
Right.
if choshech is a real thing, it exists. What's in the absence of choshech? Not choshech,
Same,
right?
right, yeah.
So you have to sort of, appreciate that. Okay, choshech techsiv v'choshech al pnei tahim. And again, the psukim are just being brought as a raya that as we move through the psukim in the beginning of Bereshis, Hashem is clearly referencing things that existed, which means even the psukim, it's not even being referenced as being it's already there. Or Hashem said on the first day, create or. So that's the only thing that's actually mentioned on the first day.
Right.
Other ones are all sort of, the givens of the math equation. Yeah. Ruach u'mayim d'chsiv ruach Elokim mirachefes al pnei hamayim. So there was ruach and there was mayim because how could the ruach be on top of the mayim unless it was there already? Midas yoyim midas lailo d'chsiv, like the pasuk says. And here's the only one where it didn't exist as the world was being created, but it references it in the pasuk that it was created. V'yer v'yi boiker. Yoim Echad, which again is a raya a little bit to what I was saying before, that these words were the actual bringing it into creation. That when Hashem said the words Vihi Erev Vihi Boiker, Yoim Echad, that was the creation of what we'll call time. I mean, that's really sort of the understanding of what we're saying. Okay. Tana, the Brisa says Sohu. What is Sohu? So Eugene, you asked. So the Gemara gives you a perfect answer here. It's a green line. It's a green line around the world, man. I mean, I don't know why you even have a question still, but okay. There's a green line hanging around the world, and now you know what Toyu is. Toyu, and again, with respect, Kav Yorek Shemakiv Eskola Oilam Kulo. There's a green band that wraps itself around the world. Shemimenu Yotza Choshech, and this creation called Choshech comes out of this Toyu. So again, if Tohu means nothingness and something's coming out of nothingness, I mean, again, something from nothing, that's Yesh Me'ayin, that's how Kadosh Baruch Hu creates the world. But again, very difficult to understand what that means. Shenemar.
I love this stuff and I can't believe I have to leave.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. The rabbi will fill you in on all the details.
You want to tell us?
You go on YouTube.
Yeah, you go on YouTube.
No, you can go on Wikipedia and type.
Yeah.
You can go on Wikipedia and type in Meister Merkovin. That'll explain everything to you.
Kev, he has the link,
Did
right?
you look
It's
already?
in the car.
I looked at this now?
Yeah, if you go to that link,
What link?
the Zoom link.
I'll give it to you right
Yeah, he'll send it to you.
now.
He'll send it to you. You click on it, you'll go straight there.
Is there a
Just do me a
Wikipedia?
favor. When you get on, mute yourself, because otherwise we're going to hear everything. that goes on in your car.
Oh, you
Let me
know
know
it's
if you
automatically muted?
I think I have it set to automatically.
I think you did.
Who do you get five?
Yoshes, Shenemar, Yoshes, Choshech, Yisisra, Sevivos of the Pasuk says that the Choshech was placed, hidden, Sevivos from that thing that is around the world. Okay. Vayu, Elu Avonim HaMefulamois HaMeshukaos B'Sahom. These are damp stones that are set or implanted in the Tahoim, in the deep. You good? You got it?
No,
Okay.
You got it.
no.
Okay. Shemehen yotzim mayim, and that's where water comes from. So on one hand, you have the voyu,
This is
that's
the
where
ring around the
mayim
earth?
comes from, and you have the toihu, which is where choshech comes from.
Anything but that, nothingness.
Yeah. Shenemar v'nata aleh kav toihu ve'avnei boyu. So you see that the toihu was the kav, the line around the world, the avnei boyu, and a stone of boyu. You have to ask yourself just a simple question: is Mike, if these were sort of the ideas, then, and again, I think this is a good question. Why is it even mentioned in the Torah? Meaning to a certain extent, you have to, and I don't have a good answer for this. I'm just saying it's something that one needs to ponder and think about. These are ideas that Hashem put in the Chumash, put in the Torah, for us to read and look at and just say, huh? Right? Meaning effectively. Now, I say that mostly because of a legitimate ignorance. But the Rishonim would read this and have a different understanding, and then people above them, they would have a little bit more of an understanding. And Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai had his understanding, and Yonas ben Uziel had his understanding, and Hillel, who said the most important thing is, what a person does to you, you should do
Correct.
something like
And
that.
everything else comes.
All of that was built on these ideas. And so don't think that just because some shmagegi tells you, the golden rule, and it's built on deep rules and fundamentals of creation. Says the Gemara. Ibri asked the Gemara, like you were talking about, Rabbi. You telling me the light was created on the first day? That was on Yom Revi. So how could it be on the first day? It says the light that was created on the first day was Adam Seifa by Misaifa Olam Bat Seifa. You could see from one side of the earth to the other with that light. Now, obviously, it didn't mean a visible light necessarily. It meant something on a spiritual level. Since he saw that generations were going to come that were going to act in terribly disgusting ways, that they were acting in terribly. He hid it from those people. Meaning the reason why the light was hidden so that these people wouldn't utilize it, wouldn't tap into it. Some say that this light was the light that came off the face of Moshe Rabbeinu when he came down from Sinai. I mean, again, ideas that are, caveat after caveat. Yeah, he kept the ore from the Rishonim. So if he hid it, meaning why not just destroy it? Meaning that's sort of the Gemara's question over here. If he didn't want the Rishonim to have it, so then just destroy it. Why did he hide it? He obviously hid it for those people he wanted to have it. Who were those for? L'tzadikim, la'asad lava. Some explain over here, la'asad lava doesn't only mean in the future of the world to come. It means la'asad lava the tzadikim that will in the future come. Meaning to say, tzadikim in every generation who tap in through liman hatayr and through connection to these ideas can still tap into that ar that exists in the Torah. Shneimar v'yaru lakimas ar ki tov, ve'in tov ala tzadik. And how do I know tov is a tzadik? Shneimar imru tzadik ki tov. Okay. Once the ar saw that the tzadikim were going to benefit from it, it became happy. The light was happy. Shneimar ar tzadikim Yismach. The light of tzadikim is happy. Kitanoi. This discussion of the light being created on the first day versus created on Yom Revi. This is a machlekes tanoi. The light that was created on the first day, you can see from the beginning of the world to the end of the world. No, that rather the light that was created on the first day was not a separate light. It was the light of the sun and the moon and the stars. It's just that it was created on the first day. And Hashem didn't hang it in the sky until Yom Revi. He called the carpenter. Put it up there. He's hung the sun, hung the moon.
Which means it wasn't. The first day.
That's one of the explanations for maybe the fact that now the Gemara said earlier that 10 things. It could be it's machlekes and tanoi. Meaning maybe this Chachamim hold that the day and night wasn't created until Yom Revi, which means Rishon and Sheni and Shlishi could have lasted for billions and trillions of years. Who knows? Yeah. Says the Gemara. Amar Rav Zuchim Atuvi Amar Rav. So before we said 10 things were created on the first day, now we're saying the 10 things that Hashem used on the first day to create things. What were these midos? I don't know what the word even, I don't know what we would even call these things. Bechachma, betvuna, ubedas. So that's Osia is Chabad, right? Chachma, tvuna is bina, das is dal das. Chabad is, these are 3 different forms of understanding, wisdom, knowledge, whatever it means. Ubekoyach, ubege'ara, ge'ara is like rebuke. Ubegvura, strength or power. B'tzedek, righteousness, u'b'mishpat, justice, b'chesed, kindness, u'b'rachamim, mercy, u'b'chachma, u'b'tvuna, says the Gemara, where do you learn those things from? T'chsiv Hashem b'chachma yasod aretz, koinin shemayim b'svuna, that Hashem creates the world with chachma and sets it with tvuna. B'da'as, where do you see that? T'chsiv b'da'ato, tahoimas nifku, that with Hashem's das, the depths had been broken through, which again is referencing the creation. B'koyach u'b'gvura, how do we see that in Psukim? T'chsiv meichin harim b'kocho, he prepares the mountains with his koach. Na'ezar b'gvura, and he is wrapped in gevura. Okay. B'ga'ara t'chsiv amudei shemayim yiroifafu, the pillars of the heavens. What is it? Tremble. I'm not sure what the English word for yirofafu is. The Yismahu migaraso, and they pull back from his rebuke. Or they stand firm. Shudder. Thank you. B'tzedek u'b'mishpat. Where do you see that? That those are the powers that Hashem used during creation. The tzedek u'mishpat mechoin kisecha, are where his kiseh is. That's where his in his abode. The chesed v'rachamim. The tzedek schar rachamecha Hashem. Hashem, please remember your mercy. The chasdecha, and your kindness. Ki me'olam hema. These are all from me'olam, from the beginning of creation. When he created the world, the world was like expanding, like 2 balls of thread or yarn or something, that it was never going to stop expansion. expanding was going to keep on going, meaning Hashem was going to never stop creating. Until Hashem rebuked it, or rebuked itself. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, like we just quoted, Amudei Shemayim Yirifafu v'Yismahu Migaros of Ainu Dam Reish Lakish. Ma'idechsev. What does it mean when it says Ani Kel Shakai? I am the God who is Shakai. What does that mean? Ani who? I am the God. She'amarti, that said la'olam, to the world, die. Stop. Meaning, I'm the one who said, stop creating, stop going further. When Hashem created the seas, it was expanding and expanding and expanding until there was going to be only water, until Hashem said, no, enough, and then it dried up and we had land. But Shenemar, like it says, Goyer Bayom, he rebukes the waters, Vayabshehu, and it dried up,
Where does it say this?
This pasuk is in Chafalef. I don't even know.
This is in the Torah? That it rebuked the waters?
Yeah, it's in a pasuk in Nachum.
Oh,
Goyer,
what's
by
Nachum?
one of the.
Oh, it's
Suvim,
Suvim. That's what I'm saying. It's not right.
No, it's not
That's what I
Chumash,
meant. Yeah,
yeah.
Chumash, right. Got it.
Yeah. Tanarabban, the Brisa says, Beishamai Oimrim, a famous machlokes here. Beishamai Oimrim, Shemayim Nivru Tchila, that the heavens were created first. Ve'achakach Nivres Haaretz.
Who wrote the Kesuvim? It was each person recorded it?
yeah,
Hashem said it?
Yeah, all of it
Hashem
was.
said it?
Yeah, yeah. But they all.
Hashem didn't say it.
Hashem gave the nevuah to the
human being.
to the human being, and they wrote it.
Got it.
Now says the Brisa. That Beishamai says the heavens were created first, and only then was the Aretz created. Shenemar, like it says, you see, Shemayim comes first, whereas Beisol Eretz Nivras Tchila.
Hashem lives in the heavens? Not like, right? They say that? Right, not understandable. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
isn't that a thing that Hashem lives in the heavens?
Seeming.
Right.
That's what it says.
I don't know what I mean.
Right. Okay. Understood.
An idea the Rambam talks about is that, whenever we talk about the midos of Hashem, we talk about how Hashem interacts with the world. All of those things.
Yes.
We're talking about obviously Hashem. So,
Right.
so we're talking about something that's beyond physicality and all these
Right.
things. These are all just languages that are helping us wrap our head around it.
Reference points.
Like when we talk about the Yad Hashem, the hand of God,
There's no right.
we think of our hand and then think, does God have this thing?
Right.
It's the other way around. There's something called Yad Hashem. If you ask me to point out what it is, I'd have absolutely no clue what it is. The closest thing we have to understanding what Yad Hashem is this thing.
No, we also know what Yad Hashem is that when we see something amazing happen in the
That's
world.
how we experience Yad Hashem. Yes. So just like I can do this and I can affect you, Hashem has an impact on the
Hashem
world.
has the ability to change Teva, like all these different things. That's Yad Hashem.
Yad Hashem. Right? Okay. Says the Gemara. So Beishamai and Beis Hillel are arguing what was created first. So Beishamai says the heavens were created first, and Beis Hillel says that no, the Eretz was created first. Beis Hillel Oimrim Eretz Nivras Tchila v'achak Shemayim Shnemra b'yoyim asayis Hashem, on the day that Hashem created Eretz Shemayim. So you see Eretz comes first and then Shemayim. Now, before we just go into that, I'll just tell you quickly. Some explain that the machlek is Beishamai and Beis Hillel, and some try to say this throughout all of their machleksim, that Beishamai and Beis Hillel argue in general. Some talk about din rachamim. That's one way they say it. Another way they say it is that Beishamai is entirely about the world of bekawach, of potential, and Beis Hillel lives in the world of bekoil, of action. Meaning, so therefore, Beishamai, they explain that with their machlekes Beishamai and Beis Hillel when it comes to how to dance in front of a kala. They a lot of different machlokes and Beishamai and Beis Hillel. That basically Beis Hillel is saying, no, the Eretz was created first because the purpose of creation is for us to actually do things. Whereas Beishamai lived in a little bit of a world of potential, which is the reason why they say that now in this world, in Olam Hazeh, the halach is like Beis Hillel, but the halach is going to be like Beishamai, which is the ultimate fulfillment of the potential. But okay, again, ideas that are a little bit my pig. Beis Hillel says to Beishamai, according to you, that the heavens were created first. A person creates the second floor of Achach Boina Bais, and then he creates the first floor. Does that make any sense? Shemar, the pasuk says, "Haboina b'Shemayim alosa ve'agudus al aretz yisada." First, you have to have the aretz, the land that is its foundation, and then on the top of the foundation, you build a second floor. You don't build a second floor on top of the first floor, unless, of course, you're in a modular construction business, in which case, then I guess theoretically speaking, you could. But you certainly don't put one on top of the other. Out of order. So according to you, that the Aretz is created first. A person creates like an ottoman or like a footstool first, and then creates the chair. That makes no sense. Meaning to say, I create a chair to see where my feet are going to go, and then I create the height of the ottoman to know where it's going to be comfortable. So too, they create the higher thing, so then I can see where the lower thing should have to come up to. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, Koyamar Hashem Shemaim Kisi, the Hashemayim is my chair, like you were saying. The Haaretz Hadom Ragli, and the land is where my feet rest. Chachamim argue on Beisham and Beisol. They say no, that the Eretz and the Shemaim were created all in one shot. They bring a pasuk. Shenemar Af Yodi Yosta Eretz v'Yemini Tipcha Shemaim, that my hand created land. The Yemini and my right hand, Tipcha Shemaim, created Shemaim. Koyre ani aleim, I call upon them, Ya'amdu Yachd, when they stand together, and the implication is Yachd, they're together, that Shemaim and Aretz were created together. So asks the Gemara, Beisham and Beisil, who say that they were not created together, what do you do with this pasuk? V'edich ma yachdav, what does it mean that they were together? Deloi mishtalfi mehadadi, it means that they never disconnected from each other. So even the one came before the other one, whichever way you go, Shemaim and Aretz are always together. Kashu kraya dadi. How do you explain the psukim? Okay, that's your explanation for that pasuk. You explain the psukim. Amar reish lakish. A lot of reish lakish on the stuff. Kishenivru bara shemayim. When they were created, he created shemayim. Ve'achakach bara haaretz, and then he created land. Ukshenata, when he hung it, meaning so he created it, and then he, like we were talking before about the sun, the moon, and the stars. Ukshenata nata haaretz akach nata shemayim. So they put the two and two together. Now you could say maybe that Beisham and Beisil really aren't arguing. That maybe perhaps each one is sort of focusing on a different component over here, which maybe fits with the bekawach and the bepoel. The Beisham is talking about the bekawach, and Beisil is talking about the bepoel. But either way, says the Gemara. My shemayim. When we say the word shemayim, where does the word come
they
from?
understand all these concepts clearly?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Reish Lakish already for sure. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Amoraim,
Got
and
it.
again, it's hard to say which Amoraim knew more and which Amoraim
I
knew
know,
less.
but
You
they-
find many times in the Gemara where one Amora will refer to another Amora and say he didn't know anything or he
Right.
knew everything. So there's obviously gradations within
Got
their
it.
own understanding.
Got it.
From our understanding, it's like who's stronger. This
How many years ago was the Gemara?
Gemara would have been
2,000 years ago?
600 AD,
Yeah.
500,
so
600,
1,500 years ago?
yeah, something like that.
They understood these concepts back
yeah,
then. Okay,
yeah.
fascinating.
At Tanaim, we're right
We
at
can understand what 1,500 years is. Like,
Yeah.
we understand that.
Yeah,
They
you can
understood
wrap
it.
your head around
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I always think about when I think about Rishonim, I think about medieval times. That's how I wrap my head around Rashi and the Rambam. I think about 1200,
We believe Rashi,
Crusades.
Rambam-
During the Crusades was Ramban.
They
Ramban was
also,
like,
Rashi understood all these concepts also, we
less
believe?
so. I have
so.
to imagine
Okay.
significantly less so.
Okay.
I don't know what Rashi
Right,
did
no,
and
I
didn't
understand. I'm
understand,
asking.
but it's very clear from the way Rashi's mefarish the Gemara
Right.
that he's not referencing any of the ideas that you might find. Let's
He
say
does-
The 1700s in France, Rashi, 1700s?
France. No, it's much earlier than 1700s. Rashi was in the
So many
1100s.
years ago.
Oh, well,
1100s in France.
Got it.
Worms.
Got it.
Yeah, France.
Got it.
That's why most of the times whenever he quotes his own language,
Yep,
Laz Rashi is always French.
Got it.
Old French, but French.
got it.
100 years before Rambam.
Slightly, yeah, 75 years before the Rambam. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
150 years before the Ramban. Yeah. Okay, my Shemaim. What does it mean when we say the word?
Yeah,
Yeah, what do we?
no.
No.
Oh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines to the bottom.
Got it.
Fourth last word in the word. My line. My Shemaim. What does it mean when we say Shemayim? What does the word mean? It's what is it made up of? Amr Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina Shesham Mayim. The Shemayim is called. It's the place where there's water. Shesham Mayim. Shamayim is Shemayim. B'masnis Satana in a brayso they say no. What does the word mean? It's Eish Umayim, meaning Shamayim comes from the shin of Eish. Shamayim is not Shamayim. It's Eish Umayim, fire and water. Again, I don't know what that means. Yeah. Melamed shehivian HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'tarfon zeh b'zeh. Okay. If you think that's what that means, that may be the absolute scratch the surface of it potentially. That's not what it is. That's absolute. I can tell you 100%. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I know for sure is that is not the whole answer. Yeah? Shemayim is fire and water, and Hashem brought them together. And I guess the miracle is that they don't put each other out. Ve'asa mehen rikia, and he made from that the firmament, the atmosphere. Rikia, whatever rikia means. Rabbi, you're gonna have to explain this thing.
That's water. Water is the definition of water. H2O.
Right, oxygen, right, which is the fuel for fire.
And then even beyond it, and then hydrogen is very powerful.
Very powerful.
Energy all locked into the.
Right, that's
into
true.
the water.
That's true on a chemical level, right?
Right.
Nitrogen is very powerful, right? Okay, says the Gemara about the Shal Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was asked by Rabbi Shmuel, Shahayu Mahalchim Aderech, when they were traveling. This is what they talked about when they were like you and I sit on a plane. What are we going to talk about? So I don't know, but Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, when they were sitting and talking, Rabbi Shmuel asked Rabbi Akiva, Amar Lei, you who served Nochamish Gamzu, Chav Beishon for 22 years. Remember Nochamish Gamzu, he was the one who said, always said Gamzu. Shahaya Dairish called essence Shabbatayra, he would be able to figure out how to understanding what Hashem intended every time the word in the Torah says S, which is a word that really doesn't mean anything, right? It's a word that can be taken out and the pasuk will still make sense. He had a drasha for every S in the Torah. So he who had every S in the Torah understood what did he do with the pasuk of Esa Shemayim the Esa Aretz, those two S's over there. How did he understand it? What was the drasha? Amarle, so Rabbi Akiva answered him, Ilu nemar Shemayim va'aretz. If it would just say Bereshis bara Elokim Shemayim va'aretz, I might think Hayisi Imer Shemayim Shmoi Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I might think Shemayim va'aretz is like the name of Hashem, meaning Bereshis bara Elokim Shemayim va'aretz. So what's Elokim Shemayim va'aretz? That's his name. So Bereshis, in the beginning, everything was created. Bara Elokim Shemayim va'aretz, the God called Shemayim va'aretz, God of Shemayim va'aretz. I might mistakenly think that, so therefore I have an S to separate it. So it's Bereshis bara Elokim S Shemayim, right? Achshav shenemar Es Hashemayim v'es Haaretz Shemayim Shemayim Mamish Aretz Aretz Mamish. It doesn't mean a name. Says the Gemara. That's very nice. That only works with the first S. The first S separates them. What do I need the second S for? If Es Haaretz Lamali Lahagdim Shemayim La'aretz, to teach you that it didn't happen all in one shot. This might be a raya Beisham and Beisila, not like the Chachamim, that they were separately created. Maybe not necessarily in the order that's in the pasuk. Beisham and Beisila will argue, but that they were created sequentially. The Haaretz Haisasayu Vavayu, the pasuk says Michti B'Shemayim Ischil Bereisha. Right? It starts talking about Shemayim. Right? Umayshno de Kachoshev Ma'ase Eretz. And why did it start talking about Eretz? Right? The first pasuk says Bereshis bara Elokim es Hashemayim v'es Haaretz, and then it starts talking about Aretz. Why not talking about Shemayim first? Tana the Rebbe Shmuel, Moshe lamelech basar v'dam. It's like a mashal. Even in this Gemara, when it tries to help you with a mashal, the mashal doesn't help. Yeah, Sha'amar la'avadav. A king says to his servants, to his people, Hishkimu lepischi, come to my house early in the morning. And Hishkim umatza noshim v'anoshim, and the king wakes up early and he sees who's there, men and women. Lemi mishabeach, who is he going to praise? Meaning, ostensibly, the men would be coming there early. The women typically wouldn't come early. If the women ended up showing up early, who is he going to praise? Lemi she'ein darka lahashkim v'hishkim. It's to those who don't normally get up early and got up early. If you're anyways getting up early, I don't give you a pat on the back for getting up early. But if you're waking up early, special for me, I'm going to give you a pat on the back. So what's the conversation over here? So the Mashal and Nimshal, again, on a basic level, is we're talking here about Hashem said, I created the heavens and the earth. He starts talking about heavens and then earth. But of the two, Shemayim v'Aretz, which one does Hashem want to praise more? The Aretz. Why? Because generally speaking, Maharal speaks this out, that things that are physical move slower. Things that are spiritual move faster. I mean, this is even true on a physical level. Metaphysical things. Correct. Wind is faster than water, meaning the more physical something is, the slower.
Go through your mind versus
speaking it, and then how fast can you talk versus doing. Right. A person can give out an order, and then it might take 6 months for that building to get built. So the more physical something is, the slower it is. And yet at the same time, Eretz and Shemayim show up exactly at the same time. So what gets more again? Each one of these ideas needs to be fleshed out.
Got the hay because can we just say that? Bereshis bara Elokim at Shemayim at Aretz.
Right. Why? What's the hay? Hashemayim.
Yeah.
Aretz.
What does that add? Because et would already say it's not his name.
Right. So what's the hay? I don't know.
That or not?
I don't know. Not here.
About it, 5 books of Moses, whatever.
That
Torah only exists with
the hay baram.
No, I'm saying, but right. I just wondering what is that? Right.
No, that word.
Yeah, not on Shemayim and Aretz. Yeah, but he baram, they say.
But it seems on this.
Tanya Rabbi Yosi says the following in the Brayso, Oilehem lebrias, she'royos ve'einon royos ma royos. And I guess this to me could be talking to us. Oilehem lebrias, that see and don't know what they see. Meaning you see something and you have no clue what it is. Oimdois ve'ein yoidos al mahin. Oimdois stand and they don't know what they stand on. That's the land that we walk on. What does it sit on? Meaning, this is what it means. I mean, we walk on the ground thinking that's the foundation, but really the ground itself sits on something. What does it sit on? Al ha'amudim. It sits on the pillars, which is interesting. A pillar, it's called al shem amud. It stands, so it's got to have something that it stands on also. Shenamar hamargiz eretz mimkoima. He shakes the land in its place or from its place. Ve'amudeha is platzun, is paltzun, and it trembles, and its amudel, its pillars tremble. Amudim alamayim, the amudim stand on water. Shenemar leroika haaretz alamayim. Mayim alaharim, water is on the mountains. Shenemar alaharim yamdu mayim. Harim beruach, and the mountains itself are on spirit or wind. Shenemar ki hinai yoitzer harim He creates the mountains and boire ruach and creates ruach. Now, what does ruach sit on? Ruach is bisa'ara, which I think like a storm or a hurricane. Shenamar ruach sa'ara oisa devaro. The wind of a storm does Hashem's bidding. Sa'ara, what does the storm sit on? Tuluya bizroya shalakadosh baruch hu. That rests on the arm, so to speak, of Hashem, on the power of Hashem. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, umitachas zeroya is olam, and from under it you have the zeroya olam. Again, I don't have a clue what's being referenced here. One thing sitting on the other. We're going to talk in a moment about different levels of the Rekia, different pieces of Shemayim. We'll get there in a minute. The Chachamim, and again, what we're discussing here, these are Ma'aseh Bereishis. Meaning the Mishnah said Ma'aseh Bereishis, don't teach it to a bunch of people. The Gemara is referencing, these are all things of Ma'aseh Bereishis. We don't understand what's really going on. Have a great day, Kalman. Right? It's on 12 things. It stands. It stands on 12 things. Shenemar, Yotzev, Givulois, Amim, Lemisbar B'nai Yisrael, that the Gvulos Amim, the limits of the people, are established Lemisbar B'nai Yisrael on 12, meaning for the amount of people that are B'nai Yisrael, which are 12 tribes. That's the 12 Amudim. Some say not 12, but Zayin Amudim Shenemar Chatzva Amudeha Shiva, that it's Amudim, the pillars of the world, are carved out of 7. So there are 7 of them. Rabbi Elazar ben Shammua Omer Al Amud Echad. No, it sits on one thing. And what does it sit on? V'tzadik Shmai. And it sits on the Tzadik. Shenemar U'tzadik Yisayid Olam. This sounds like mamish, like opening up an Oyev Yisrael. You open up a sefer and you start reading. Amr Yehuda Shnei Rikiyim Hein. There are 2 heavens. Shenemar Hein LaHashem Elikecha Hashamayim U'Shmei Hashamayim. There's Shemayim, and then there's the Shemayim of the Shemayim. Right. So there's 2 Rikiyas. Rish Lakish Amar Shiva. No, the 7 of them. Ve'elu Hein. Each one of these words, I don't know what they mean. Vilon, which in Hebrew is a curtain. I don't know what vilon is though. Rikia, Shechokim, Zvul, Ma'oin, Mechain, Aravais. Those are the 7. Now we're going to go through, the Gemara is going to go through each and every one of them. Vilon is a curtain, is Einoi Mishamish Klum. It doesn't serve anything, or doesn't have a service, has no purpose. Ela Nichnas Shachris V'yotzi Arvis, it comes in by Shachris, it goes out by Arvis. Umechadash b'chol yoy ma'aseh bereishis, and it renews every day.
We're saying the davening, he's saying it's referring to Vilon.
That's what Vilon is. That's one of the Rikiyas. Next to Shenemar, Hanoitek Hadoik Shemayim, it stretches like a curtain. Shemayim stretches like a curtain. V'yim tachem ke'ohel lasheves, and it's made like a tent to sit, to rest. Okay, Rikia, the second one. Sheboy Chama Ulvana Kechavim Umazalos Kivuin. The Rikia is what we know as, that's the place where the sun, moon, and the stars set. Shenemar Vayitein Osam Elokim Berikia Hashemayim. He put them in the Rikia. Shechakim, the third one. Sheboy Reichayim Oimdois. Over there you have like mills, something that grinds. A mill is used to grind. V'tochnos mon letzadikim, and that's the thing that grinds the mun for tzadikim. Now, this is not talking about in the binbar. This is talking about even nowadays, the mun that the tzaddikim are still eating from, whatever that means. Shenemar v'yitzav shechokim ima'al, and he commands the shechokim from above. V'dal se shemayim pesach, and the doors of shemayim are opened. V'yimtar aleim man lechol, and he showers upon them the mun to eat. And you see over there, it refers to it as shechokim. Fine. Zevul, the fourth one. Shebo Yerushalayim u'beis hamikdash mizbeach banoi. It's the place in Shemayim. Obviously, we're not talking about on the earth, right? We're talking about the Yerushalayim of Yerushalayim Shalmala, Beis Hamikdash Shalmala, Umizbeach Banoi. That's where it's built. Umichoil Hasar Hagadol, and Michoil, an angel. Oimed Umakriv, all of carbon, brings up carbonis on this Mizbeach. What is he bringing up? Not bringing up animals. He's bringing up what is Shenemar. I think it's right, the Shamas of Tzadikim. Shenemar Banoi Bonisi. I shall certainly create, or I've certainly created. Base Zvulach Mechoin, a place L'Shiftacha Olamim. So you see over there that Zvul is this place. Fine. Uminolim the Ikri Shemayim. How do I know that it's one of the parts of Shemayim? Tichsiv Habeit Mishemayim Ure'ei. Look in the Shemayim and see Mizvul Kodshecha V'Sifartecha. Again, you see Zvul refers to as Shemayim. Ma'oin, the fifth one. Shebai Kitoi Shel Malachi Hasharis. There you have groups of angels that sing songs at night, but are silent by day. And why are they silent by day and not singing? mipnei kvoidon shel Yisrael, that somehow that's a covet to Klal Yisrael. Shenamar yoimam yitzava Hashem chazdai. During the day, Hashem tells them to be quiet. Ubelayla shira imi, but at night the songs are with him. Okay. Amrei Shlakish kol ha'isik b'Torah belayla. HaKadosh Baruch Hu moishech olav chut shel chesed b'yom. Person who learns Torah at night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends upon him a chut shel chesed b'yom. He gets chesed during the day. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, like we just read, yoimam yitzava Hashem chazdai, that during the day Hashem gives him chesed. Umat ham. What's the reason? The beginning of the pasuk of Yomim. What's the reason why Yomim Mitzav Hashem Chazdai Mishum? Because the pasuk says Uvelayla Shira Imi, because a person's learning Torah. Torah is a Shira. He's learning it at night. Dikadamri. There are those that say Amrei Shlakish Kol Ha'isik B'Torah B'Olam Hazeh Shehu Doim Elayla. A person who learns in this world is like, and this world is referred to as Laila because it's dark and there's Hester upon him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moishech Alav Chut Shel Chesed Lo'Olam Haba. Like it says, Shehu Doim Elayim, which is like the Yom, the clarity of the Olam Haba. It's like the daytime. Shenamar Yomi Mitzav Hashem Chazdai V'Layla Shira. Same pasuk. Amr Reb Levi. Amr Reb Levi. Kol ha'poisik midivrei Torah v'oisik b'divrei sicha. A person stops learning to go talk in Narishkeit or just to talk about anything not Torah related while he's in the middle of learning. Machilin oisik gachlei risamim. You feed him like coals of a type of wood tree. I'm not sure what type of tree it is, but it's like certain types of coals. My assumption is they're not just regular coals. These coals are worse than regular coals. Not gishmak, yeah. Shenamar, like it says, hakoitvim miluach alai or alei siach v'shoresh v'samim lachmam. So again, it's a drasha here. The literal types in the pasuk is not clear, to me at least. But luach is like the luchais, is referring to Torah, and the siach is referring to chatter. So you see a person who's a kotef, he disconnects or he stops from the Torah, and he decides to go with siach. That's shoresh resamim lachmam. His bread is going to be this tree, the ash of this tree. Uminolam the ikri shemaim. How do we know that this what do you call it? That this level is called shemaim? I still think we're talking about me'oin, right? Shenemar, yeah. Hashkifa mi me'oin kodshecha min hashemayim. Hashem sees upon from the shemayim, which is referred to as me'oin kodshecha on this world. Mechain, the next one, I think this is the sixth one. Shaboy oitzreis shalag, that's where snow is stored. If you wanted to know where snow was, it is in Mechain. The oitzreis bar, also hail. Hail is also over there. The aliyas tilolim roim, it also is the place where all of the bad dew are held. The aliyas agolim, drops of rain is my guess. I'm not 100% sure exactly what that is. The chedra shel sufa, the sa'ara, it's also where hurricanes and storms are stored. Uma'ara shel kitor, it's the place where mist, again, fog, mist, it's the cave where it's held. Vidal Seiseyanesh, and the door to this place of what we call Mechain is fire. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, Yiftach Hashem lecha es otzra hatov. The implication being that there's an otzra hatov, there must be an otzra that's not tov. Which one is that? The one we just read about. Hani v'rikia isnu, asked the Gemara. These things are all in the rikia. These things seem to be in this world. Hani ba'ara isnu. Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, like we say this all the time. Halolu es Hashem in haaretz. We praise Hashem from the land, and specifically the land. Haninim v'kol tahaymais, eish, uvarod, shelag, v'kita, ruach, sa'ara, oisadvar. All these things are on the land, not in the Shemaim. Amriv Yehuda, you're right. Amriv Yehuda Marav, David, Bikish Alem Rachmim, David HaMelech, daven to Hashem that they shouldn't be kept up there, that they should be brought down in this world. He said to Hashem the following: the pasuk says, "Loikel chafetz resha," you are not a God that wants evil. Ata lo yegurcha bimgurcha ra. You shouldn't live with these evil things. Meaning, it was like almost like Hashem, David HaMelech was saying to Hashem, take these evil things away from you and bring them down here, that they shouldn't be, it doesn't make sense for you to be amongst them. Again, I don't know what that means. Tzaddik ato Hashem, it's understood to mean you are a tzaddik Hashem, lo yogur bimgurcha ra, leave them here on the aretz. Again, I don't know what that means. Uminolan de ikri shemayim, how do we know that Mechain is called shemayim? Dechsiv ve'ato sishma shemayim mechain shavas. Shivtecha, thank you. You shall listen to the shemayim, which is the mechain shivtecha, the place of your dwelling. Arvos, the last one, shebot tzedek u'mishpat u'tzedakah, that's the place where righteousness and justice and charity Ginzei Chaim, the storehouses of life, the Ginzei Shalom, storehouses of peace, the Ginzei Bracha, and the storehouses of blessing, V'nishmasan Shal Tzadikim, and that is where all of the neshamas of the tzaddikim are, the Ruchais, and the spirits, V'neshamais, and the souls, Sha'asid Lihibaros, that will eventually be created, V'tal Sha'asid HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Hachis B'Meisim, and the Tal, the dew that's going to be used to recreate people from Tchias HaMeisim, is all in this last
Pretty big
one.
place over
In
there.
here, so I guess that's the Yotzer HaTov that was referred to before. Tzedek u'mishpat ichsev, tzedek u'mishpat nechayin kisecha. I see that this mechayin has this tzedek u'mishpat. What's that?
The seat of God's right. Mechon Kisecha? No.
Seems that way.
Right. The foundation of the throne says.
Yeah. Tzedakah u'tichsev v'yilbash tzedakah kishrin. That tzedakah is like an armor, a suit of armor. Ginzei chayim dichsev ki amcha mekar chayim. That your ki imcha mekar chayim. Ki amcha or ki imcha? What does it say there? Imcha. Ki imcha mekar chayim. For with you is the source of life. The ginzei shalom dichsev yikra loy Hashem shalom. The ginzei bracha dichsev yisa bracha meis Hashem. Nishmosan shal tzadikim dichsev v'hoysa nefesh adoini tzrur b'tzor hachayim es Hashem elokecha. So that is referring to the nefesh, the neshamas of the tzadikim that are tied up with Hashem b'tzor hachayim. Sorry, I lost the spot. Ruchos u'neshamos she'asad lihibaros. Tichsev ki ruach milifanai ki ruach milifanai ya'atov v'neshamos ani asisi. Hashem creates those neshamas and the ruchos that He wraps them in, wraps around them. V'tal she'asad HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyos b'laches b'meisim. The tal that Hashem is going to recreate people from Tchias HaMeisim is Tichsev geshem nidavois sanif elukim. The rain, a very big rain, will be poured by God. I guess Nachalascha, the inheritance, vanilla, Ata Koinanta, was made strong or firm. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Sham Ofanim, Usrafim, Vechayus HaKodesh. Over there you have these different types of malachim. Hu malachi Hasharis, and the service angels as well. V'kisei HaKavod, that's where Hashem's throne is. Melech kel chayram v'nisa shochen aleim, and Hashem sits upon that kisei hakavod, or upon those things, or shochen aleim, He rules over them, sits over them. Be'arvus, shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, soilu leroichev be'arvus b'koshmai, that Hashem rides on the rochev, on the rider, be'arvus, in arvus b'koshmai, in Hashem's name. I don't know. Uminol the ikri shemaim. How do we know that this last thing is called shemaim? It's a Gzeir Shava. Oh, thank God. Gzeir Shava. Asi Rechiva Rechiva. Comes Rechiva Rechiva. Ksiv Hacha, like the pasuk we just read. Soilu Roichev Ba'aravos, that Aravos is referred to as Roichev. Ksiv Hasam, and so too it says over there, Roichev Shemayim Ve'ezracha. So you see in both places it uses the Lashon of Roichev, and Shemayim in one place, and Arvos in the other place tells me that Arvos is one of the Rikiyas HaShemayim. V'choshech v'anon v'arafal mekifano. So the darkness and the clouds and the fog surround it. Shenemar, like it says, like we saw earlier, the pasuk in the daf, Yashes choshech sisrei svivoisav sukosei chesh chasmayim avesh chakim. Okay, miika chashucha kamishmaya. Is there truly darkness by Hashem? V'haksiv, the pasuk says, v'hu galei amikta umistart the. This is a pasuk, I think, in Daniel. Yes, Daniel, where it says, "Hu galei amikta." He reveals the depths. Umistarta. And He reveals what's in the dark. He knows what's in the dark. And light is with Him. So you see over here that light is with Him, not darkness. So how can you tell me that darkness is with Him? Like Kasha, something and
Bebate
Gavoy, one's talking about the inner chambers, one's talking about the outer chambers. Inner chambers, I think, very interesting. This actually, I think, is an interesting connection. The Gemara earlier in Chagiga talked about the Bate Gavoy and the Bate Barov, and it talked about the tears. It talked about Hashem cries. Where does Hashem cry? The Gemara said before. The Gemara says yes. And the Gemara over there also said, Ha Bate Gavoy, Ha Bate Barov. So you have to work out which one is which. But so you'd have to assume the light is when He's not crying, and the darkness is when He is crying, unless you want to somehow say an idea that's the opposite. But either way, I think we can hold over there for the day.
So what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm just going to continue. It's going to be a lot of like this.
If you read the words like this, you'll be able to do it in half an hour.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, but that's if you don't ask any questions.
I got it.
Which by all means, you should ask questions.
I know how dumb.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Okay,
All right,
beautiful
all right.
boys, enjoy your day.
Michael, have a safe trip back home.
Thank you, thank you.
Have a safe trip
When are you
home.
going back?
Today, this morning.
Just today, 12 o'clock.
We'll miss you.
The high news. Well, yeah, I'm just, I go right into, they do the chavrusa tonight already. I'll be
Oh,
at the
good.
yeshiva,
What
Go-
yeshiva do you live in?
Yeshiva Elimelech over in Washington. A brand new yeshiva, we just
Do you live
built,
in Washington DC?
yeah, right outside Washington,
Very nice.
2 blocks.
You
from
have you working today? No.
What's that?
You have work today, Kev?
I have some things to do work-wise. There's very little going on today.
No, banks are closed, right?
Banks are
Banking
closed.
is closed today. All right.
I mean, I have clients that have issues, but
Right.
nothing. I
Michael,
can,
have a safe trip back. So I love
Thank
this
you,
last
thank
week.
you.
Well, Kev, stay right
How's
around.
Evie
Glad you
doing? Is Evie doing all right over there?
Evie's doing great. She's
Yeah.
sleeping. She was sleeping when I left, so I'm assuming she's doing
Really,
great.
that's a miracle.
How
All right.
old are you, Evie, now?